Welcome to the American Classroom Podcast, where we explore the role of building a civil society in school. And I want you to imagine it's 7:55 in the morning, and it's the first day of school back. You're the school principal, and the bell's going to ring in about 5 minutes. Pouring into your school is 7, 8, 900 teenagers, and they're so excited to be back. What are you going to do? How are you going to make sure that this particular year is one of the best in their life? That's the challenge that a school principal has every year. And I'm excited today to interview a couple of excellent school leaders that have really demonstrated excellence in school leadership. And we're going to explore what it means to be a principal in an American junior high school, and what it takes to really take their schools to the next level. So joining me today is former principal Kim Ellsworth and Heidi Udall from Heritage Academy in Arizona. So Heidi, Kim, welcome. We're glad to have you here on American Podcast.
Thank you. Thanks.
The American Classroom Podcast. Let me clarify that. It is the podcast of America.
That's right. It's good to be here.
I'll never forget, a couple of years ago, I was watching, because economic nerds like me do this, I was watching the Federal Reserve Chairman, Ben Bernanke, talk, and he said, the future of our country is in the classrooms today.
Oh.
I thought, facts.
I'm going to use that quote.
That is true.
Good one. I think one of the founders said that as well, or multiple founders.
He probably is repeating it from somebody else, yeah. I know we have a couple questions that we want to go to, but I want to throw an improv in. Do you remember your first day in school when you were first principal, what that was like? Did you feel that pressure, or did you have, what was going through your mind at that time on your very first day, Kim?
Very first day of being a principal, I think what was going through my mind is I have no idea what I'm doing right now. I'm going to go into it. All these kids coming in, it was a community that Heritage Academy has not been in yet. And so I knew that I had this task of teaching what Heritage Academy was, as well as being able to have everything set for these kids, right? To have the scholars come in and to have the parents be happy and to have driveline go okay. And there's like about 1,000 things on your mind when you start that first day of school. And I just thought, oh, I hope I have this all together. And I think we fake it till we make it a lot of times on that very first day. There's plenty of planning that went into it, but I think we have to realize that there will always be something that drops in. Even on that first day of school, something's going to drop in. It's not going to work out correctly, and you need to be able to bob and weave as much as possible.
Yeah. Some new principals probably have a lot of imposter syndrome, and hopefully if they listen to this podcast, they'll get some things that'll strengthen them and help them, have a little courage and confidence on day one, and maybe get ahead and
Absolutely.
learn a few lessons. Now, Heidi, your first day was in the middle of the COVID pandemic.
It was.
So no challenge at all there.
My first day as principal was July 1st, 2020. And so we did not have a traditional first day of school. We started back online. And I know that COVID was challenging for all of us in many ways. I think it was actually a gift to me as a first year principal, because it gave me a couple of months while the scholars were online to get my footing. Because I was just thrown in the deep end very shortly before school started. And that first year, because we had to lean in and work together so much as a team, the staff, the families, the scholars, in many ways, I was lucky and it bonded us. But I did have a motto that first year. It's from Finding Nemo: just keep swimming, keep swimming. Because every day you feel like you put that little straw up and take a breath, and then you're back in the deep end drowning, and you put that little straw up, take a breath. But it is completely overwhelming, because you just have no idea what you don't know until you start down that path. And I remember the previous principal had said to me, one thing I love about this job is no 2 days are alike. And I think that is very true. You wear so many different hats, and no 2 days are alike, which is the challenge, but it also is part of what makes it fun and what helps you grow.
It's very much a generalist role, where you have very broad things, maybe an inch deep, but it's a mile wide. Whereas teachers maybe specialize, maybe they're very, a foot wide, but a mile deep. type thing.
So the way I describe it is a principal is like driving an LA 6-lane freeway, and you're constantly changing lanes and there's traffic all around you, and the pace and intensity is just like the freeway. Being a teacher is driving down a country road. It might be twisty and turny, but it is a single lane.
Yeah.
And so you know what your job is. My job every day is to teach math or history or English or whatever it may be. As a principal, one day you're in the lane of facility, or 1 minute you're in the lane of facility, and 5 minutes later you're in the lane of parent, and then you're in the lane of teacher, and then in the lane of budget, and then you're in the lane of discipline, and then you're in the lane of whatever, and the exit ramps, sometimes they get missed, and you have to take the next one and circle back around and start again.
It's 2:00 and I haven't had lunch yet.
Exactly. It's 3:00. The bell is ringing, and have I eaten anything today?
What has happened today?
I don't think I ate lunch the first year, but I think that's where the confidence is of the bobbing and the weaving, right? No matter how much planning that you put into something and know how much we plan for, you have to have the confidence to go in that you know that something is going to switch. You know you're going to have to change that lane at a moment's notice.
Yeah.
I think that's a solid analogy.
I would say something you said to me my first year is, I'm a pretty decisive person. Making decisions is not, quote, hard for me, but I do reflect and think about my decisions before I make them. But I had made a decision, or I was weighing a decision, and you and I were meeting, and you looked me in the eye, you said, Heidi, I hired you because I know you can make decisions. And I think that is key to any principal, and especially first-year principals. You are hired and are trusted. Whoever made this decision believes that you can be a successful principal. And so trust yourself to make decisions. And when you make good decisions, nobody's going to ever say anything about it. And you will do that about, hopefully, 90% of the time. You will make good decisions. The 10% of the time that you make poor decisions or you make a mistake, you will hear about it every time.
Sure.
And those are the learning moments. And rather than doubting your ability to make good decisions, because your track record is actually that you make good decisions most of the time, reflect and learn from it. And so expect that you will make some poor decisions. You'll make some mistakes, but that's okay. Majority of the time, you will make good decisions. That's why you were hired. That's why the people who hired you trust you to do that.
And I think it's important to remember, too, that when you make those mistakes, or you make a wrong decision, that you just own that. Yep, that wasn't the best direction. Yeah. Let's turn around and do a different direction this time. And then that just helps with that confidence and, okay, we know how to make a better decision next time.
I also think being decisive and being able to make decisions comes from being very clear on what your purpose is. And I think that when school leaders have a clear vision for what their role is, that is your compass that you gauge your decisions from. For example, my mantra was, what is best for students? That was my guiding light. Aside from promoting the Heritage Mission, which is the overall umbrella, as I'm making difficult decisions, in my mind, I would say, how does this impact students? Is this best for students? And sometimes what's easiest is not what's best. And so you make the hard decisions knowing that really at the end of the day, the scholar is going to benefit from it. And so because I had a clear vision and guiding light for me, then I could make decisions with confidence. I think it's when you're unclear of what your role is, then it becomes difficult. And I used to joke that being a principal is not that hard. There are really just two pillars. Number one is keeping scholars safe. At the end of the day, parents want to pick them up in one piece. And number two, it's to provide a solid education for them every single day. And so those two pillars are what guided my decisions. And because I was super clear on that, it just, again, you're making a million decisions very, very quickly. But I had formulated in my mind those guidelines to help me. And so
that's great.
New principals need to take some time to ponder about how they view their role and become really clear for themselves what that guiding mantra
like some
is
tests or decision-making criteria if it satisfies these primary criteria of the school objectives or the objectives of education.
Yeah.
Great. There's some that are maybe secondary. They're a little more fuzzy.
Exactly.
But that would be a good exercise for any principal to say, what are my decision-making criteria? Yeah. Would you add anything to
I think she said that really well. That we make sure the scholars, in one piece after school, and we know that that's what we're looking for is what's best for that scholar. I don't think I would add much to that. I think that it's important that we do know what those guiding principles are, and besides what our mission is, right? So whatever the mission of the school is, what is that? And make sure that's your number one. But then really, we're there for the scholars. We're there for these kids, and we need to remember that as principals, that it really is about them and what is best for them. So
yeah, like maybe I would just add like the parents, right? That's a big deal, and they're the customer in a way.
They're choosing, yeah, absolutely.
And the important triangle, right? The teacher, the parent, the child, the student, scholar. What you refer to them. Are we strengthening that, or are we weakening that relationship? With our decision making, or how can the parents' involvement in the decision strengthen the relationship of that family?
And I think the communication there, right? If you keep that communication open about your decisions,
sure.
Sometimes the why is unclear. And if you can explain that to your parents, then it becomes a little bit better of, I understand a little bit more about why you made that decision. And so now I'm not quite as upset with you as I might have been for that decision. But I think that helps keep the parent in the loop, is the why that we do things, and why it's expecting their scholar like it is, and what we would do to make that decision better for them.
To pull a thread off that, Jared, being a principal is difficult. Being a leader, right, is difficult because the buck stops here. But I think for me, reflecting back, some of the highlight days of being principal were those sometimes really hard conversations you have in your office with a scholar and their parent. And the beautiful thing is that you have multiple adults in a room who their common goal is the well-being of that young person. And so there may be tears, there may be frustration, there may be anger, but at the end of the day, that meeting is because we care about you, young person. And sometimes the parents come at it a little bit differently than the principal does. We have different responsibilities, we have different roles, but we are united in our care and love of that young person. And so when I talk about what is best for scholars, what is best for scholars is to have a great family and to have a strong relationship with the adults in their life and their parents and their grandparents and all of that. And so we don't always agree on how to make that happen, but I do think that we're always united in our intention for the well-being of that young person.
And that's a good place to start when you have hard conversations, is let's focus on what's best for their growth and development.
Yeah.
That's good. Okay, good. Well, that's sort of the first category we wanted to explore in the podcast is traits, and decision making is the ability to make decisions. And so I think that's a good pro tip, right? Where it's easier to make decisions when you have some decision criteria to go after, and let your school's mission, let your school's vision statement, some of the policies that are important for that community, have your short list of decision-making criteria. If we step back from the ability to make decisions, what other traits do you think are important for principals just to reflect on and maybe develop in their development? Kim, maybe
I would say that being trusting and inspiring your staff. Okay. So number one, I was taught something a long time ago, actually from my mom, but she taught me to always hire people better than you are. And so not to go in thinking, I'm the best one. I'm going to be the best on this campus. I know the best decisions to make. I know how to teach better than anybody. That's not the case, right? We're there to help lead this school, but you want to hire better than you are so that you can have the best people at your disposal, right? We say that we hire people so that we have those professionals, and then we just help grow them from there. But to trust that you hired that person who is better or who is awesome in their area, and then to trust that they can do that, to give them the power to do that, to let them run with it as much as possible. I hesitate with that. We don't want them to run away with it. But at the same time, we want to empower them and inspire them to be the best that they can be in their niche, whether that be an English teacher or a PE teacher. How do I let that person be the best that they can by giving them guidance, but at the same time, letting them do what they do best. And I know what they do best. So I think that for me is a huge part of making sure that the school becomes a better school. Because if everyone's running at their best and feels that their leader is willing to trust them, that they know what they're doing, then I think they're going to expand even more on what they can do in that classroom with those scholars.
That's good. I like that.
Yeah.
I think mine is a cousin to yours.
Okay.
So you talk about trust. I think be genuine. The way that you develop trust is that you are genuine and you are sincere. People know when you are lying to them. They feel it. They know when you are telling them a story. They know when your heart isn't where your mouth is. So be genuine. Be genuinely who you are, and each leader will come with their talents and their strengths, and they will lead in their unique way. And so, new principal, be yourself. Be genuine to who you are, and you will refine your skills and you will refine your talents as principal. But if you are a more reserved personality, be genuine to that. If you are a more bubbly personality, be genuine to that, and be that way with everyone, meaning the teachers, the parents, the scholars. And they will, the other part of being genuine is you are able to communicate your true love and care for them because it's coming from a sincere place. Yeah. When I started teaching, I was late 30s. I had been a stay-home mom for 13 years, and teenagers, let me back up. The advice my dad gave me says, Heidi, teenagers, they don't tolerate unfairness, and they can see and smell phony. And so he said,
quick.
Yeah,
very true.
And I think adults are the same way. We don't tolerate unfairness very well, and we can see and smell phony. So that kind of has stuck in the back of my head. Look at your dad or your mom and my dad, taught us some lessons.
Some things.
And so when I have a hard conversation, I just say, this is going to be a hard conversation. And then I'm just genuine about what the hard is. But it's hopefully coming from a place of care.
Absolutely.
And the other part is, I think this is another saying I had, water the flowers and not the weeds. What you water is what grows. And so the narrative that you create on your campus around your scholars, around your teachers, around your families is what will grow. So if the narrative is, we have the best families, they are so supportive, you as the leader will see evidence to support that narrative. You will see when your parents show up. You will see when the parents are supporting their scholars. You will see the many ways that we are partners. It doesn't mean that they can't be unsupportive. It doesn't mean those other parts aren't there, but you are watering the part you want to grow. It's the same with your scholars. We all hear, oh, that 7th grade class is so hard this year. And so what evidence do we look for? We look for evidence to reinforce that narrative of this 7th grade class is really hard. And they probably are. They probably are really hard, but we don't necessarily want them to have to carry that on for the rest of their career. The 8th grade teachers can say, you know what? I'm going to give them a fresh start, and we're going to see who are the superstars in this class. Same with teachers, give them a chance. I think the point I'm trying to make is I really believe everyone is doing the best they know how most of the time. And if we want our scholars and our staff to do better, then it's our obligation to teach them how. Mm-hmm. And so leading with the benefit of the doubt, which goes back to the trust, being genuine, it helps lift people, and it waters the flowers and not the weeds. Sometimes you do have to pull out weeds. They are there. So I'm not trying to be rose-colored glasses, but I do think if you have an attitude of trust and belief, and then your actions demonstrate that and you reinforce that, you can lift everyone.
Absolutely. I want to circle back to a little bit about delivering what you say you'll deliver. That's being genuine as well.
Mm-hmm.
But the school as a whole, if you say as a school, we're going to do this, right? Then the school as a whole, we need to figure out how to deliver that. Same with yourself and being genuine. If you say you're going to do something, you need to deliver that. So that's one thing I would hear on my campuses about heritage in general. It's like, I love heritage. They do what they say they're going to do, right? We deliver on what we say. And I think that goes a lot to leaders as well. Like they're the ones making that school. So you're delivering on what you say you will. And that's that genuineness. Yeah. I think that's something that people came back quite a few times to be like, thank you for just saying that, being you, right? And that just really helps.
Here's who we are. Here's who we're not.
Yep. Exactly.
Well, we just jumped right into a couple of topics here. But I didn't give our listeners a chance to learn a little bit about you. I know both of you have been on American Classroom before.
Yeah.
Yes.
But some people may be listening for the first time. So Kim, maybe I'll just have you introduce yourself to our listeners and then Heidi as well.
Kim Ellsworth. I am here at Heritage Academy. I'm a director of education right now, which our organization, that's the principals report to me. I've been with Heritage for 13 years this time around, I think, and been open to a couple of our campuses. So I opened our Levine campus and our Maricopa campus here in Arizona. And so I've had the opportunity to do that, which for me has been quite the learning experience to open a campus, as it's very different than taking over a campus. I've run my own businesses in the past, and I've been a teacher, and those are the types of things that I've done throughout the years. Stayed home with my kids when they were little, but at the same time, I think my experience owning a business and running a business has also helped me understand how to run the school, because as Heidi would probably agree to this, so you feel like you're a little CEO of your own little campus. And running all of those aspects of the campus and being able to switch in 6 different lanes all the time, that is something that I think my business experience really helped. So after teaching school for a few years, then I was able to run businesses for about 10, and then I got back into education and have been able to run schools. So
that's great.
Yeah.
I like the business analogy. Some people compare it to being like the mayor of a town.
Oh, yeah, there you go.
Because you get a lot of feedback.
A lot of feedback.
It's like all this busy things going on, but it's all these things. Heidi?
Absolutely.
I'm Heidi Udall, and I am just starting my 23rd year as an educator. I spent the first, 16 years as a teacher, a high school English teacher, and then I served as the principal for 6 years at Heritage Academy Mesa. Just retired at the end of this last school year, and so I'm going back into the classroom, and I'll be teaching 8th grade English this coming fall.
Fun.
Which we couldn't be more excited for.
I am so excited. My heart has always been in the classroom. I describe myself as a principal. I would say I'm a teacher at heart impersonating a principal.
Well, and one thing I love that we do as principals that I would recommend for any school is that we have our principals teach a class. Mm-hmm. And so when we teach a class, we remember what's in the classroom. We remember what we're asking our teachers to do because we have to do it ourselves. So even though we've been principals, we've also been teachers the whole time because we've been in the classroom.
Yeah, makes a big difference.
Yeah.
Well, let's get back to the analogy of the 6 lanes and competing priorities. How did you balance it? How did you find your groove, I guess, in dealing with all of the plates that you were spinning on it?
Do you want to start with
Heidi,
that?
maybe we'll start with you.
Sure. I think it's something that evolves. So if this podcast is targeted toward new principals, the first year, just be patient with yourself. The first year is all about learning what those lanes are and learning how to when and how to put on your blinker. And then I think you will experiment with different systems that will help you learn to prioritize your time. And going back to kind of the 2 pillars of safety and instruction, because if you boil the job down, it kind of does come down to those things. Yes, you're helping run the facility and managing the budget. But anyway, emergencies are always going to rise to the top and take priority. And emergencies come in different shapes and sizes. So that will always demand your attention because by definition, it's an emergency. Otherwise, I think principals need to learn to structure their time where they block out time to be in the classroom. You have to know what's going on your campus, and sitting in your office, you cannot know that. You just can't. You need to be out among the scholars and the teachers and the parents. And so for me, mornings when I arrived, I'd drop off my stuff in my office and I would go spend time in the courtyard or go around and talk to the teachers and just kind of welcome the day with the people on campus. And so if it was a parent in the foyer, or if it was a teacher making copies or walking up, hey, I haven't seen so-and-so for a while, going and seeking out a teacher to have a conversation and just say hi. So I would always welcome my day with the parents, the scholars, and the teachers. And then you will have meetings that will demand your time, but you can also block off your calendar to just, like I had daily blocked off time for observations. Mm-hmm. And sometimes those were usurped by an emergency or something else, but often it gave me permission to be in the classroom because my executive assistant's not going to schedule something on top of where I have blocked out time. Mm-hmm. So I think learning your own organizational strategies to create those priorities. I'm a believer in intention. And so we can spend our days just kind of, being tossed around the sea and going where the waves take us, or I can decide where I'm rowing. And so that's where, again, a new principal is going to just have to take time to figure out what demands their time, what is on their plate, and then how to organize that. And for me, it was blocking out time on my calendar that just gave me permission to get out of my office. And then just having some rituals.
One thing I thought when I saw you be a principal, what was very effective was your interest in systems and process. Yes. Right? Yes. You talk about process.
I'm all about efficiency.
We joke about the P word, yes. Right? Process, right?
I'm all about efficiency.
And I don't know if it's your German heritage or what, but can you talk about, because you would zero in on these processes that were just sort of irritants, that why am I spending my time on these things?
Yes.
How can we get that? Talk to us about how that benefited you as a principal to get those processes smoothed out so you could spend more time.
Well, I remember you said to me one time, and I don't remember exactly the analogy, but it was something to this effect, that when there's a fire, you have the firefighters that go in and they fight the fire and they put it out. But there's going to be another fire, and they're going to put on their fire hat and they're going to go fight it again. Or there's those who figured out why there was a fire, because they never want to fire again. You said, Heidi, you're the second kind. And I said, yes. Well, when an irritant or a problem or a system wasn't functioning well, I'm an analytical person. And so I would take some time to analyze where are we sticking here? And then as a team, a front office team, we would talk about it and brainstorm together and come up with a system to alleviate or eliminate it as much as possible, and then empower and entrust the team to help take that on. Mm-hmm. So just like a simple example is collection of fees. We have class fees. And the first year I was like, this is a disaster. We need a system for this. And I don't want this to be sucking up so much of my time or my team's time for that matter. And so it took us a couple of years to kind of figure out what were the sticking points. And we came up with a process or system where the registrar owns it primarily, and it only spills off onto the principal and the vice principal's desk very rarely now. But it took us time because you have to change the culture of the parents, and what does a deadline mean? And when we say fees are due this day, do we really mean it? And is your child really going to be removed from the class, or whatever the consequence is? So yeah, I think creating systems so that you have a really well-oiled machine for those things that happen repeatedly. The one-offs you can't necessarily create a system for, but when you have repeated thorns, brainstorm, take some time to try to solve the problem long term. Mm-hmm. And it may not happen immediately. It may take years, but you'll get there.
I think that goes back to it saves time, right? Because I remember interviewing your dad years ago and asking him his biggest struggle as the principal. And that's what he said. He says, time. There's never enough time. And so when you would take the time to actually have those systems in place, you not only saved yourself time, but you saved your team time in the future. So at this time where you're saying, block off your time to go in the classrooms, we joke about that sometimes because do we actually get there? Can we get there? Because so many things come up, right? So even blocking off time sometimes feels like there's not enough time.
Well, and I think it also comes back to clarity and communication. And so again, back to the first year principle. Be patient with yourself. This is going to take a year or two. You need some time to just become clear.
Yeah.
To see what is going on, to figure out what needs, another Jared analogy, what is the wobble and what needs to be, what screw needs to be tightened up, what needs to be fixed. And so it's okay if you feel like you're kind of bumbling through it, because you are, because we all are. We're all bumbling through it until we figure out a system or a process to clean it up. But be relentless in creating those systems for efficiency. It will serve you.
We took, about 2 years in our quarterly trainings or workshops with our principals, and we just focused on time management.
Absolutely.
I mean, remember, we hit that from all kinds of different angles. And
Yep.
and I hope new principals get, be patient with yourself, but also about every 90 days, sit back and look at your calendar and say, okay, what are those things that are just sucking time out? And how can I, eliminate or automate or delegate or whatever.
I like that. Eliminate,
something
automate,
like
delegate.
that. I don't know. Somebody probably coined that. I don't know. But, how can you do that, right? And then if you can identify 2 or 3 hours, I mean, that's something that I'm doing, I call it the Heritage Labs.
Yeah.
I'm just playing with different AI tools now. And I think principals in the future are going to really benefit from the agentic AI tools that can really automate things. But the principal does have to stop and say, what is taking the time from the more important things, and how can we either delegate or, you remember when I told you, I said, Kim, what's the first job of a principal? What's rule number 1? We had rule number 1. You remember that?
Delegate everything.
That's right. Delegate
I thought it was going to be never touch a scholar.
Oh, never touch a scholar. Yeah.
There's that too, but delegate everything came first.
That's true. That's up there though. Don't touch the scholars. Right.
That's funny. I do remember I was sitting there with the principals and trying to have everyone record what they do on their calendar. What became the tricky part there, if you remember, was finding time to record what was on your calendar.
Yeah.
So it was this circle of let's figure out what's happening to our calendar, but we don't have time to figure out what's happening to our calendar.
That's right.
So it's been a process over the last couple of years to really help them figure out where is your time and how are we spending it, and try and block out time where it's supposed to be.
If there's a superintendent or an assistant superintendent listening, get the principal out of the school
That's right.
in a different environment so they have the time to
They
look
have
at
the
their
time
calendar.
to look at the calendar.
Right.
Absolutely.
Well, and I think someone who ends up in the principal's seat they're a hard worker. They're an achiever. They're ambitious. They want to do a good job. And so what our tendency is to just work ourselves into the ground and to work really long hours and to just give it our all. I think that's our basic disposition, myself included. But if we want longevity in the position and if we want steady leadership, you have to hack it. You have to figure out those life hacks so that you have a life outside of the job, because the job is always there. And like many jobs, but you feel such a sense of responsibility of these 800 students and this 50 staff showing up day after day, and you don't want to let them down. And so, you just work harder and harder, but your time is limited and you're one person. So I think part of the mindset is embrace the team. And that's the delegate piece. Just embrace the team concept. You have talented, capable, willing people on your campus. Utilize their talents, utilize their ideas, and together those systems work. Because no system can function just with one person. A system functions collectively.
And one thing I've noticed with our principals is they had said, I don't want to give my teachers any more to do, right? So to delegate it, I'm giving them something more to do. And I think we need to remember that for the most part, they want to help. They want to be part of this team. So let's have them help where they can. And they do have the ability. And we have to be able to do that. But those are also so you can create healthy boundaries. If you don't have that work-life balance, we know we have principals that that's some of my goals with them. How are you going to have your work-life balance? Because otherwise you don't have the mental stamina, I guess, to get through days if you don't have the break.
Well, it kind of reminds me of a concept we talked about that Dan Sullivan's made popular called unique ability. And he defines a unique ability as something that you're natively good at, that when you do that activity, it kind of energizes you. You really like it, and you don't feel like it's work because it's sort of fun. And then all of these competing parts. So let's combine a couple of these, right? So I think every school leader, whether they're principal, assistant principal, superintendent, should figure out what their superpowers are or their unique abilities. And that's how Sullivan defines it, right? What are you good at natively, and what gives you energy? What makes you happy, right? Because you'll find in this thing called principalship, some of those types of jobs. Maybe you do like scheduling, and you do like spreadsheets, and you do like that. You like that stuff, right?
That's me.
Yeah. You like the
You like the
systems and
spreadsheet.
processes, and some school leaders are really good at that. Well, you want your team to have all of it, right? So then you would delegate the things that just drain your battery. Oh, I've got a 5-minute battery life for this type of activity. So you would hire an assistant principal that actually uses that as their superpower, their unique ability, right? And then together, you have a dynamic duo, right? To keep the hero analogy going. So find those traits that you're good at natively, right? And then as you look at the 6 lanes, say, here's the 3 that I'm really good at.
Yep.
Okay, and I'll be here where I need to, but let me make sure that my team, can compensate for my weaknesses.
Well, and I want to add on, I know that different districts and systems function differently than Heritage does. But probably the most meaningful part of my team that helped me create systems and navigate those first couple of years were the other principals. And Kim was one of those. And you need mentors. And so seek out other principals. Even if they're also first-year principals, they will have, to your point, different superpowers than you have. And so what helped me navigate those first couple of years is we would meet once a month on a Friday, and we'd have lunches, and we'd all bring our lists of questions. I don't know how to handle this. I don't know how to solve this. And together, that collective brain power, someone had either solved it already, or together we had ideas of how to work on whatever those wobbles were. And that was so valuable. And so again, I know that systems and districts have different setups than ours, but just find those mentors, other principals who are in the exact same situation you are, trying to run a school, and you can lean on each other and be vulnerable in those moments. Because as a leader on the campus, you do have to be tough, strong. People look at you, you can't be falling apart at every moment.
It also can be very lonely, right?
Yeah.
It can be a very lonely leadership role because you really don't have too many people that you can lean on. So to research those other principles. I just want to add to that as you move along in your career as a principal, to also remain humble enough that you can call a first-year principal. I do remember that's what I would do. You were first-year principal. I thought, I'm going to call and see what Heidi thinks. I don't care if I've been doing this longer. She needs to tell me what she thinks today.
And ironically, I almost felt like a first-year principal every year, because there are different ways that you realize, okay, I gotta work on this, or I need to fix this, and so while you may have some years under your belt, and you may have established some principles, and you may have figured a few things out, in some ways, I think if you can approach every year almost with that curiosity and humility of a first-year principal, that you will be an incredible leader, because the best leaders, I think, model that desire to learn and grow, which is frankly what we want our teachers to do, and frankly what we want our students to do, right?
Absolutely.
The best teachers are open to change and growth and refinement. And what is the whole process of learning? it's acknowledging I don't know something and then being open to knowing it or gaining that skill, which is what we ask scholars to do every single day, all day long. And so being able to model that from the top is really powerful in creating that culture of learning on campus as well.
Well, let's pivot to the topic of character development, because certainly we want our young people to learn and achieve academically or athletically, artistically, whatever maybe the emphasis of the school is. But above all, we want them to be good citizens, right? And act with high moral character. And that's certainly a job that doesn't come through state standards or anything, but schools have culture, and schools, have this higher purpose of developing character. And so how do you think the principal influences that in terms of shaping not just the culture, but the impact of the culture on the individual character? Because you can have schools that have great culture, but if it doesn't sink into the individual lives and benefit them, it's pretty superficial, and it's, good marketing, but
yeah,
it doesn't have lasting value in the lives of these young people. But you want to go first?
Sure. I think that, well, first of all, building culture and having that culture in the school is what will help build that character, in my opinion, because you're setting expectations. They're probably high expectations most of the time. You would hope that you have these high expectations for these scholars to get there. And with those high expectations, be consistent. So if you have an expectation and you're holding them accountable to that expectation, then you're going to keep building that character. So I don't know, we'll give the example of being honest. We want you to be honest. So we have scholars come to our office. We are clearly not telling the truth. We're going to hold you to this standard. We're going to talk about this until this truth comes out. And then we're going to discipline or reward however we need to. But I think that's what's helping build that character, is recognizing how we hold them to that expectation, but those small things, right? It's that consistency of what I like to say is making mountains out of molehills, so you won't have the mountains, right? These small things that if you're paying attention to them and teaching them with the small thing, then hopefully we never have to get to that big thing to teach them. This is what it means to be honest. Don't rob a bank, or, that's the extreme. But to be able to take those little things that happen on campus every day and hold to that consistency and hold them accountable, I think that really what helps them. And I'm going to circle back to what Heidi said too about modeling the expectation, that when we are leaders, we are modeling that expectation. So for instance, we always tell our scholars, this is your job right now. So your job is to come to school on time, and your job is to come to school in dress code. This is your job. I hired you essentially to be here. And so we need to model those expectations. You can't be the leader that's running in late or not looking like they're professional that day. So those little things, I think, also help build that character.
That's good. I think that's important, because you've heard me say it. I think our young people learn, if you think of all that they learn, half of what they learn is through observation of the faculty, of the school leadership. And then the other half of what they learn is what comes out of their mouth and what their instruction is. I mean, there's so much more than what. So your say-do gap, or how your faculty, operates and lives and talks.
Yep, and it's that credibility, right?
Deal.
Yeah.
What do you want to add?
Consistency was the word that came, but part of it is repetition. And it's that accountability piece. I think one of the roles of the leader is you beat that drum of what the vision is. And so at Heritage, we have our mission, and it is to build strong character. And you beat that drum over and over and over, and you remind yourself, and you remind your staff, and you remind your scholars, and you remind your families, this is who we are, and this is why we exist. This is who we are, and this is why we exist. And you do that in multiple ways. Part of it is through, verbal communication, written communication, but what really is the lesson is how we conduct ourselves. And I think that's probably the most intimidating part of being a leader, is recognizing that whatever you do gives everyone else permission to do it as well. And so my first year as principal, I made this card that I laminated and gave to all the teachers to hang in their classrooms or their offices. And it says, everything you do teaches something. And it was given to me early in my career, and I have had it in every classroom or office since, and I will continue, because the way that I dress teaches kids how I feel about my profession. The way I organize my classroom teaches kids or scholars how I feel about the learning environment. How my handouts look teaches scholars how much time I put into my work. The feedback I give them teaches them how well I am interested in what they're learning. And that's from the teacher side. From the principal side, it's the same. It's like everything you do teaches something. And so be relentless and consistent in teaching character. And that requires you to, be consistent yourself. And it's good. It's good for us to strive and reach for those high morals. And none of us is perfect, and you'll have your bad days. And again, be patient with yourself, forgive yourself, but understand that your behavior gives everyone else permission to behave that way. And you just have to be realistic about it. It is intimidating, but just accept that that's what a leader is. People are watching.
7 tellings makes a telling.
Yeah,
that's right.
Yep.
One thing I learned was always to smile and be friendly.
Exactly.
Because I had someone comment my very first year on, we were at the open house and she didn't even look at us. And I was like, oh, okay. Let me just try to look at everybody and have a smile on my face. And I joke about that, but we do have a principal that has a permanent smile on her face. Yeah. And that actually is helpful to her because she's constantly smiling. And so I do think there's something to be said for that.
Well, and I consciously, when I would pull into my parking spot in the morning and I would walk across the street, and the minute I got on campus, I intentionally would think, Heidi, smile. Yep. And I would start greeting the scholars and I would start greeting the teachers. And I can't tell you how many scholars would write me little notes, say, you're always smiling. It seems like you're happy to be here. And yay,
it teaches me
I am happy to be here. Something. But I wanted my staff, I wanted our scholars to know how lucky I felt every day to be there with them.
And even in the hard times, to be able to keep that smile on your face, that's probably the hardest thing, is to remember to smile when you walk out of your office. Yeah. So no matter what's happening.
Yeah. And I also think, if you need to shed a tear, you shed the tear. And it's also okay for people to see that as well.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And that first year with COVID, there may have been staff meetings where we all cried together.
We needed to.
I mean, not literally, but it felt like it.
Absolutely nuts. That was crazy. Well, Heidi, you had a great culture on your staff, and you know the story of a little girl who came from New York, and she came from one of the most wealthy zip codes in the world, up in Westchester County. These are huge. Scarsdale, they have massive homes, but their school system, she discovered when she came here, her school system in New York was a train wreck. That was part of the reason why she needed to come here. And she realized how great of an education she was getting here. And it wasn't just that, but it also somehow, and I don't know who flipped the switch in her mind, but she realized, hey, this is my chance to be independent. And because she really just wanted to grow up and be on her own. That was really her goal at the time, because some of the scaffolding around her was not reliable. And so she just said, this is my chance to get a good education. And not just that, but also the dual enrollment program that your school operated. She just saw that is a huge benefit. And she just buckled down, and she's like, I had to double down because I just did not have a good education when she lived in the Bay Area or in New York, which I don't know why. Those places have all kinds of money in their systems. But here in Little Mesa, Arizona, at least for her, it was so much better. And then but it was an interesting thing how the culture taught her the value of education and how it could make her a better person, but also build a better future for her. And then she just took off from there, and it was really neat. But that's because of culture and focus on character, and somehow that really benefited.
Well, I got an email at the end of the school year from a scholar. She joined us last fall. She had come to the United States the previous year and went to a different school system. And she joined us as a freshman. Her background was she was from Venezuela. She spoke no English, none. And so we sat down with her, and we had to build this schedule to try to set her up to be successful while also helping her learn English. And I did lunch duty every day in the auditorium and where the PTO would sell snacks. And I would watch every day as her friends would order for her. And one day I pulled her and her friends aside and I looked at her friends and I said, she has got to learn to speak English. It is the best gift that any of us can give her. She has got to learn to speak English. So will you please stop speaking for her? And I had said to her in my English as clearly as I could, and she's listening in Spanish, I said, you need to speak English. I won't answer you. She would come to my office and she'd have one of her friends talk to me. I'd say, no, you talk to me. Well, in this note, she wrote, I thought you were mean, but I know that it's because you cared about me. And by the end of the year, she's still struggling with her English, don't get me wrong. But she can now come to my office and she can talk to me and tell me a little bit about her day. And she talked about the culture of our school and how she felt surrounded by teachers and scholars who cared about her. And what a great gift to me that she took the time to write this, but also it is true. Like, it takes everyone on campus to buy into the vision to create that culture. And that's what a leader tries to do, but you model it from the beginning. You just have to model it.
Well, that's great.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for sharing that story about speech. When we think of first year principals and what we're trying to do here on this little episode, it's kind of like this. Do you know that Steve Covey wrote a follow-up book called The Eighth Principle? His Eighth Principle. Yeah, it's a great book. But his eighth principle is find your voice, help others find theirs. And that's what we're hoping to do here with principals, because somehow, some way, through some rough and tumble, you found your voice as a principal. And hopefully some of these lessons can help new principals or current principals that are still looking to find their voice, through some things here. So as we're coming towards the end of this, what other ideas would you want to share, or anything else as you were thinking about this topic might be useful for either first year, second year, third year, or even a principal that's just trying to maybe reinvent themselves and continue forward?
I would add one thought about taking every situation, whether hard or just feedback, because as principals, we don't get enough feedback. Everybody likes to tell us
You don't get enough?
how to do the job.
I thought you'd get nonstop free consulting.
We do. It's free consulting. However, just to what can you learn from each situation? So I like to take situations, usually the most difficult ones, and think, what can I learn from that? What could I have done better in that situation, whether for the scholar or for the parent? Because as Heidi mentioned earlier, we do make mistakes. We're going to make mistakes as leaders. But even without making mistakes, sometimes you can just look at it and think, what could I have done better? What could have been better in that situation? I think if you're always looking and striving to learn, as we've talked about as a leader, we remain humble. We remain wanting to be taught how to do something and learning from every situation. I think that's probably one of the most important things you can do from day
I
one.
think that's a healthy experiment, because otherwise the bad situation stays bad and it just keeps gnawing at you. But if you're reflecting, you're trying to convert it to a positive.
In
convert
as
it
many
to a
ways as
lesson.
you
It's
can.
an asset that will keep on giving.
That's right.
And it just won't keep badgering you and dragging you down. Turn it into something that gives dividends and you can share with others.
And then hopefully if you do that with everything, you can just keep building yourself up, right?
Yeah.
Getting stronger.
Anything you'd add?
Mine will be a little unconventional. It's really easy in a job like this to get swallowed up in it and to think that it is your whole identity, it's your whole life. I think every principal, whether first year or 20 years in, figure out what refuels you and take time to refuel. And whether that be at the end of each day, at the beginning of each day, on the weekends, you need space from the job, because I guarantee you the best ideas and solutions and healing comes with that space. Because when you're in the water, you're always wet. But when you get out and you walk along the beach and you take some time to think and reflect and learn and ponder, you come back to the job renewed and with some different ideas sometimes. So for me, I go on daily morning walks, and a lot of those walks were me conversations with myself about something that happened the day before, something I knew was coming up the day of. And it was through those daily conversations with myself or with my husband or with other confidants that sometimes I could get clarity, and also sometimes I just needed a break. And it was in those breaks that you would, whoa, I just had this great idea, And I think there's a lot of science behind that. I can't cite the science, but don't let the job swallow you up whole. Keep some space for yourself, and you will be such a better leader if you do that.
Oh, that's good. Yeah. All work, no play makes Johnny a dull boy.
Yeah, that's right. Boundaries of some kind.
Yeah, that's good advice. Well, thank you. Thank you both for sharing what your experience has been, some of the stories, and hopefully people that listen, and we'll share this broadly with our own staff here at Heritage Academy, but those around, right, that they'll find something that they can take away and improve on.
I am happy to help. And so if anyone listening to the podcast wants to reach out, because I'm a teacher at heart, mentoring is being a teacher. I am happy to support any future leaders, any current leaders, and share what I've learned. I'm not claiming to know everything, but I am happy to help. So don't hesitate to reach out.
Yeah, that's great. That's generous. Thank you. Well, thank you. And that kind of wrapped up this little episode, but we hope that people that have enjoyed this will share this and follow the podcast so that we can have more of these and benefit our education, because the whole point of this is building a civil society, and that starts with strong classrooms. And obviously the result is a strong citizenry and country. So thank you both.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. It was a lot of fun.
Thanks, Jared. Thanks, Kim. Thank you.
If you like this episode, please like and share with someone who would find this interesting. We appreciate you listening to the American Classroom podcast today.
Thank you.
American Classroom is brought to you by Heritage Academy Mesa. Heritage Academy in Mesa, Arizona is a public charter school serving grades 7 through 12. Youth that come to Heritage are not just students, but scholars who are taught by the #1 rated faculty in Arizona. If you'd like to learn more about Heritage Academy Mesa, please visit heritageacademyaz.com and click Mesa.